all I was ever been around was country folk up where I grew up and everything. I never seen a Mexican, I never seen a black person. It scared me. I didn't know what to think. But it was kind of exciting too, get to meet new, and then I move in with all these kids and everything, people I never had a chance to play with before. All I had was my sisters that I could play with and my brother. So it was nice, I thought. When my father was killed in 1960, and my mother tried to raise four of us, and she had another one on the way, and she just couldn't do it by herself. So her brothers and my dad were all Masons, so they suggested moving us to the Masonic home. And that's where we came in 1963.
My little sister wasn't able to come because she wasn't 3 yet, and they didn't take kids under 3. So she had to wait for a year. But my middle sister Joyce and me and my brother Billy and Gary came in 63. My dad died in a car wreck, and my mom couldn't take care of us. So they put us here because my grandpa was a Mason. And they separated us, brothers and sisters, so that was scary. And then we got in with a bunch of new kids that we didn't know, and I was shy. I was shy all my life. I've been shy. So it was just scary, but I guess we eventually got used to it.
A week after I turned 4 years old, my parents were killed in a plane wreck. 2 weeks later, we were at the Masonic home, and that's because our dad was a Mason. And so there were 5 of us, and we were all brought to the home. The home was structured, very much so, but it was great, I thought. And growing up, we had farmland. We worked on the farm, we were in the hay fields, but it also had fields that we could hunt in. Had a huge pond we could fish in. So there was a lot to do, and we played ball all the time. And of course, you have enough kids, then it's like you got a bunch of brothers and a few sisters. So not knowing what a normal life was to have a parent, I was fine with it. We had a lot of fun, really, believe it or not. We had a lot of fun. There's a couple. One is when Jack Stewart ran into me and broke his leg. I won't forget that ever. And the other one was we had a manure spreader. I don't know if you know what that is, and Dennis and I used to ride that and say it was our stagecoach. And I won't forget that. But we had a lot of adventures, and we made a stage wagon one time and had the Indians who were dressed up like Indians and ride horses, and we burned the wagon, and that was fun.
Best memories was, like when they let the boys and girls play softball together or stuff like that. They kind of, before, the first few years and all, the boys and girls had to pretty much be separated. You got to play, the boys, they played sports and stuff. The girls never played sports. I don't remember any girls playing sports. But, when they started letting the girls play softball with the boys, that was a fun time. We always enjoyed that. Then boys would go back on the farm, and we used to hunt with our BB guns, have BB gun fights sometime. And, it was just great. We had a pond back there, we'd go fishing it. That's one night, a few nights, me and Gary Lewis and your mom and Carol and Diana Hamilton, we all would sneak back to the barn at night. We got busted one night. It was after hours and all, so that was a fun time too.
I think we came in 70 or 71 of April. I can't remember, but one of the two. Dad and Mother split up. Dad was the Mason, Back then, divorce was mainly on the father's side, so then he couldn't take care of us. So he was a Mason, so we ended up here. Yeah. I had a friend that's passed away named Joyce Meyer. It was either you saw me and you saw her, or vice versa. She was, even though she was a year older than me, she had gotten left behind 1 year. So we were in the same grade, same schools, did everything the same. You kind of latched on to who was your age, and that's where you built your friendship with. You were friends with everybody else, but thick and thin is what you got on that. And like I said, good times, sad times. I swore I would never get married. After living here, I thought I would be single, but at 21, I met my husband, fell in love, and then we celebrated our 43rd anniversary. I tell you what, sometimes he doesn't want to hear me talk, but there are things that happen that make you have a memory, and he does not know except for what I've told him. But there was a lot of discipline in this place. That gave me the discipline I needed to grow up and be the adult that I was. And he was a good man, and it just ended up happening, and we've been happy ever since.
My first memory is actually in Cottage 3. The first, it was that winter. I don't remember coming here, but the first memory I have was it was wintertime because there were no leaves on the trees, and I, actually was crying, just wondering why I was here. So I was 3 years and 9 days old, September 11th, 65 when I came, and there were 7 of us here, yeah, so that's the first thing I remember.
I was at the Masonic Home Lodge 2 times in my life. One, I was approximately 8 or 9 years old, and I was there maybe for 6 months, not very long. The second time I was in Masonic Home, I was in the 7th grade, I believe. I believe I just started the 7th grade, and continued there until I graduated as a senior in 1974.
So Paul and Rocky Perkins, Paul was just older and Rocky was just younger. Rocky came about 4 months after I did. As he was, had just turned 3 in January of 66. But so we all kind of grew up together here. We were all actually given one bicycle. The 3 of us were given one bicycle, 67 or 8, something like that, which lasted about a month because, we obviously didn't share too well. So, we had a bicycle for a month and then it was taken away. Paul and Rocky and I, when I was 10, Paul would have been 11. Mr. Dempster had died. So we went into his apartment, found a pack of cigarettes, decided we would smoke a cigarette, at the ripe old age of 10, 11. And then in our nicotine-addled haze, going out into the garage, and the keys were left in, which typically they did, they left the keys in the vehicles, were left in the station wagon, so we took it. And we drove around campus for probably half an hour and then parked it right back in the garage, and no one ever knew. We got in trouble for smoking. Robert Perkins and my brother Jack at dinner that night smelled us and kind of let us have it and said, don't you ever do that again. But we didn't mention that we stole a vehicle. So yeah, but those are a couple. But I mean, I'll tell you, there were so many stories here. It just really was. Growing up with that many kids and that many imaginations, you can understand how it could be a little bit wild at times, and it was. I mean, we had BB gun fights. We would shoot each other with BB guns, and if they were far enough away, you could actually shoot a shotgun at somebody because it'd just pelt them. It wouldn't hurt them really bad, but there were rules on all of that. You couldn't shoot them up close. But yeah, so we had it was a very exciting childhood. It really was.
My time there was interesting, actually. My mother, initially, we were in the home my first time. My mother had some mental issues. My father had passed away when I was about 2 years old, and my brother was about 9 months old. So my father had passed away. My mother was then of course a widow. My mother had some issues where she wasn't mentally stable enough at times. She would have what we would call at that time nervous breakdowns. Now they call them, mental breakdowns. But she would end up getting to the point where she had to go into a mental institution. Like I said, the first time I wasn't there long. The second time I didn't expect to be there long. Again, my mother would get better and she would come out and she would take care of us, bring us home. But unfortunately, at the age of about 13, 14, my mother passed away unexpectedly when she was in the mental institution. My oldest sister was in college. My oldest brother, he had begun college. And it was my younger brother and myself. We were in the Masonic home. So we stayed there until we graduated.
My father had passed away at 1, and my mother passed away when I was 12. And actually, I should tell you, I did come here once before as a younger kid, but not very long. But yeah, my mom passed away from a heart attack. And at that point, I was very close to my mom. And I'd been here once before. I'm like, oh, I need to go back to the same place I used to be. So it was interesting.
My home was very dysfunctional. My mother was a very loving mother, although she couldn't show love like most mothers could or would. She really didn't know how. Therefore, I wasn't able to actually experience love. It seemed like I was always seeking or searching for love, but didn't know how to finding it in a healthy way. When I went to Masonic home, there were other girls there my age. We would get together, we would talk, we could share, something I didn't have at home. So it was a really good experience. To this day, where so many of us are such good friends, and we call ourselves brothers and sisters. We get together at our reunions, which we do yearly. And as many of us as possible still come to those reunions.
My closest friends were Richie Brown. He was about a year older than me. Stanley Stewart. Stanley was about a year younger than me. And I know most of the Stewarts that have been here and left. So it was that Gary Meyer, Steve Bowling, and Jack. And Tim Walker was also one of my friends.
I can't really think of a whole lot of bad times that I've had. There's some old home kids that said they really hated it there, but I don't know why. Because, of course the big boys ruled out there and the big girls ruled theirs, and then when they started out there, they started out the little kids, so they got their chance. And that's the way it was. But you go to a school like we went to Wagner, and we had such a big family that nobody would touch one of the home kids because they had everybody there on them, It's just everybody protect everybody. We was all brothers and sisters. And that's why I love these home reunions every year, because we all get together and, they're our sisters and our brothers. They're as much our sister and our brothers as any biological kid are. I mean, we get work out there, earn a little bit. Of course, back in, we only made a quarter an hour, or 50 cents an hour. The boys at the dining room, they would do the dishes through the dishwasher and all. The girls would set the tables and serve the food and all. And it was, home life. Something I never experienced before I went there,
I mean, there were issues that we had at the home. The haircut issue is one of the fun ones, but all things considered. And also basically got the family that nobody can, we're all family. So, and it's also unique. I had an incident happen a few years ago in Facebook. I reconnected with one of the girls that I grew up with in Ashland, Kentucky. We went to school together and all that. And I mentioned that I knew she lived in Louisville. And I said, after my grandmother died and I moved, this is where I ended up at. And she goes, oh my God, she goes, I work for Norton Health and we have our monthly meetings at the, well, they call it the Olmsted, at the dining hall. She told me the next day she walked in there. It was a whole different feeling because now she's walking, she knows somebody who actually lived there. Because the problem with schools that big, people just disappeared. When you moved, nobody knew you moved. It was all of a sudden, where are they? Haven't seen them. We don't know what happened to them. But that was a crazy thing. And I just look at it, I don't look at it as a bad experience. I just look at it as unique. Like somebody will say, well, you had a hard life. I didn't have a hard life. Different.
One of the biggest memories was when busing started. They didn't really know how to prepare us for that. I wasn't prepared. We really didn't know what was going on a lot. But out of all that, some of the relationships I forged with some guys who lived all the way down in the West End, I still have friends today. And they played football with us. And it was a difficult time. I didn't understand the hatred that was going around at the time.
So you say busing, like segregation?
Yes, okay. Yeah. And Wagner was an affluent East End school at the time. And, for me, it was a chance for us to really have a good football team. And, I was excited about that. Some people weren't, which was a learning experience for me. Those couple of years probably taught me more about society in itself, because, we were kind of closed in here for years. They protected us and didn't want us to be exposed to some of those things, which for the most part was good. On those type of things, it was kind of bad because it was a real steep learning curve for us all. But like I said, there, towards the end, like I said, I've got relationships with still a few of the guys I played football with back when I was in 9th grade. So that helped me a lot. It kind of showed me a little bit more what was going on out in the world than what I could just see here. So that was probably the biggest as far as imprint on me. Didn't have a lot to do with the home, but, taught me how some adults were. And sometimes adults didn't act like adults.
There were things that were not right. Some of the people that got hired on here maybe were a little less than desirable, but we made the most of it. We had a few good house parents. Edith DeWitt was wonderful. Miss Olther was a relief matron, but Miss Johnson, she was that constant presence the whole time I was here for 60 years at this place.
Miss Johnson, poor Miss Johnson, she struggled with me. She once told me, she said, Dennis Brown, because that's what she said to you. She said your whole name when she was upset with you, because she never got upset. One of these days, you're going to have to actually read a real book. And I said, Miss Johnson, we both know that's not going to happen. So just get the clip notes and save us both a lot of time and effort. And she said, there is no shortcut in life, Dennis. And I said, well, okay. She lived long enough to see me grow up, leave, go in business for myself, and become successful. And I was out here at the picnic, and she was here, my wife was here, and my kids were here. And she said, Dennis, I was wrong about that shortcut. She said, you did it. And I said, yes, ma'am, I did. I said, it's crowded at the bottom. You don't want to start there.
There was one person that above all else will always, always, always come to mind when I think about greatness. And that was Miss Johnson, Miss Laura Johnson. Miss Laura Johnson was a beautiful soul. She devoted her whole life was devoted to the orphanage and those orphanage children. And there were a lot of orphans that went through that orphanage. She was teaching us, she tutored us, she led us, she gave us wisdom, she stepped up to the plate when we needed somebody to talk to. We could go to her. Always calm, always level-headed, beautiful woman. And she stayed there for her entire life. As a matter of fact, after she retired, she was the one person, I believe, that was stayed at Masonic Home and actually got a cottage there and stayed there until she passed.
Well, I think like most of us here, Miss Laura Johnson, she was our counselor here. She was able to kind of look at each kid and determine the best path for them, you know, and you know, because we had a variety range of kids here as far as learning issues. You know, I had tough times in school, but she would take the time to sit down and teach you, and you know, and cared about you. I mean, she, you know, of course this was later in life, but she dedicated her whole life to this place. And it was only later in my life, you know, at first when I was here, you know, I didn't want to be here. It was only later in life that I found out that I needed to be. And she was one of the ones out here with her, and we had Miss Edith. She was one of our house matrons here. You know, Mr. Rocky from back in the cafeteria that would sneak us ice cream every now and then. Yeah, there was a few, but Miss Johnson was probably the main one that she pulled no punches and told you how it was, but she was very sympathetic to kids. And I think that's, you know, for me to see that someone actually gave her whole life to this place with no regrets, you know, that impressed me.
It was, you know, home life, something I never experienced before I went there, you know. So, you know, and they raised you to be proper people, you know. You know, if you don't see your parents and stuff all the time, you know, you got a new family right there. That's all you want. Yeah, that's all you want. And we really, you know, I don't regret any time being there. I love that place. That's, I'm sure all the people that's here today love that place, or they wouldn't be here.